Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd really appreciate your comment. It helps me understand if you enjoyed the story and how I can improve in future ones. My name is Ryan Mercer. I'm 38 years old, a regional sales director based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Friday night, 8:17 p.m., I came home from a 2-day ride along with my field reps, dropped my overnight bag by the hallway bench, and heard laughter coming from the living room. It wasn't the kind of relaxed laughter I recognized from good dinners and easy company. It was sharp, timed, layered over a playlist I didn't pick and the clink of stemware on coasters I bought last summer. I stood there long enough to take in the details that matter. Shoes in a small pile beside the rug, an extra jacket that wasn't hers, 3 wine glasses on the coffee table, and my wife's voice lifted just enough to carry. I didn't walk in right away. "Just tell him it's over and watch him beg," one of her friends said. Then came a round of laughter and the soft thud of a hand on a cushion for emphasis. My wife made a nervous sound I'd learned to recognize in the last few months. I could picture the faces without seeing them. We'd had a quiet week by our recent standards. Fewer small fights. Fewer sighs at the end of sentences. She'd been out 2 evenings, catching up, with the same friends in my living room now. She'd changed the passcode on her phone a month ago and never offered a reason. I didn't push. I noticed. The difference matters. I moved to the doorway where the hall meets the living room and leaned a shoulder against the frame. None of them looked over. The TV was paused on a home renovation show with a kitchen island larger than our dining table. My wife sat cross-legged on the couch, hair tied back and ankle bouncing. Her friends had the wide, comfortable posture of people who believe they're right and safe. Another voice said something about how men never appreciate what they have until it's threatened. I didn't feel anger. That surprised me. The sentence I'd heard wasn't about us. Begging, promising, bargaining. It was funny in a dry way, how a group can be so sure of a man they don't know. I set my keys on the entry table and walked to the kitchen for water. The dog lifted his head from his bed, looked at me, then went back to sleep. I poured a glass, stood at the sink, and listened without pretending I wasn't. They didn't lower their voices, which told me they were not worried about being overheard. 2 things had changed recently that I hadn't told anyone. First, I'd stopped calling first, anyone for anything. Work could wait a beat longer, and my wife could reach out when she wanted to talk. Second, I'd opened a new note on my phone titled Next Apartment, Must-Haves. Just square footage, a north-facing window, walking distance to a decent gym. Writing it down made me calmer. Not an escape plan, just proof to myself. One of the friends asked my wife if she was ready to do it. They said it with a little glee. My wife answered that she wasn't sure what words to use. Someone offered lines. They liked the ones that began with "I've been thinking" and ended with "I need to choose myself." I thought about the last year. Her new social routine. The way she'd pull her hand back on the couch and say it was too hot for cuddling, even in December. The small, quiet way she downgraded my work when her friends asked what I did. He's in sales instead of he leads 5 teams across 3 states. And kept his people employed through 2 bad quarters. It's always small things. I walked to the back door and stepped onto the deck. The air was clear, cool enough to notice. The neighbor's porch light was on. Somewhere down the block, a car door shut and an engine turned over. I set the glass on the railing and watched my breath once, just to mark the moment. I didn't need to check a calendar to know the month. The idea that I was supposed to panic felt remote. Her laughter came again, closer to the kitchen this time. One friend said she'd stay for moral support. Another said she couldn't wait to see my face. I looked at the backyard we had re-landscaped last spring. The lights I strung under the eaves still worked. The small herb bed I built held nothing but soil now. None of it felt like a loss. I went back inside, set the empty glass in the dishwasher, and wiped the water ring from the counter without thinking about it. My wife appeared in the doorway. She started to say my name, stopped, glanced back toward the living room, then steadied herself. Before she spoke, I said her name plainly. The TV unpaused for a second and then paused again. A cork twisted against glass. There's a quiet you only get when a group leans in. I stayed quiet. She took a breath, and I could tell she was going to pick the line about thinking and choosing herself. It was the neatest one. It sounded responsible while taking nothing on. I nodded once to show I was listening and walked to the pantry to throw away the chèvre wrapper she'd left on the counter. When I straightened, she was ready. The friends were near enough to hear without being seen. What I felt then was not dread. It was relief. Not because I wanted it to end. I also had no interest in punishing anyone. I wanted accuracy. That's all. I stepped back to the threshold where the tile meets carpet and met her eyes so she wouldn't mistake my calm for distance. Whatever she was about to say, I was already steady. By the time I crossed that line into the living room, I knew exactly how I was going to answer. She stepped fully into the kitchen and squared herself. The light over the sink sharpened her cheekbones. Behind her, the living room went quiet. The TV was paused. I rinsed my glass, set it upside down on the rack, and waited. "Ryan," she said, "I've been thinking." She glanced toward the couch where her friend Saturday. "This isn't working. Maybe it's time we end things." It wasn't a discussion or a question. I didn't flinch or argue. I pulled a dish towel from the oven handle and wiped the damp circle where the glass had been. She watched the towel, waiting for a reaction. In the living room, someone tried to laugh. It came out thin. Another voice whispered, "Shoo." I looked past my wife to the edge of the room. 3 wine glasses. One half full, one smudged with lipstick. A phone face down but lit with a new message. The group thread preview showed hearts and a rocket emoji. "What exactly isn't working?" I asked. Calm. Even. Not challenging, not inviting a fight. Just a clear request. If someone announces an ending, they should be able to say what ended. She cleared her throat. "Us. The dynamic. I need to choose myself." The last phrase didn't sound like her. "Okay," I said. It didn't mean agreement. She was ready for protests. She wasn't ready for me to treat it as information. Her eyebrows ticked up. "Okay. I heard you," I said. "If you've already decided, there's not much to argue." I folded the towel and hung it back straight. From the living room, "He's in shock." One of them breathed, too loud. "Give him a second." My wife seemed grateful for the assist. She took a step closer and lowered her voice. "I don't want this to be ugly. I want to do it maturely. We can be kind. We can still be friends." The cadence told me she'd practiced it. "Friends," I repeated. "What does mature look like to you?" "Time apart. Boundaries. You don't make this harder than it has to be." She gestured toward the hall. I nodded. "Is there someone else?" The words were precise. I didn't put weight on them. It's the kind of question that's useful for paperwork later. Her eyes flashed. "That's not what this is." She turned her head toward the couch. The friends shifted, suddenly busy with their glasses. "This is about my growth." "Got it." I checked the clock on the stove. 8:29. I noted it. "And you want to do this right now? While your friends are here?" "They're here for support," she said. I needed them. She sounded defensive. "Okay," I said again. "Then we should be clear." She folded her arms. "Clear how?" "You're saying it's over." I kept my voice even. "You're not asking to work on anything. You're telling me you've already chosen." She swallowed. "Yes." I let the silence stand. The refrigerator hummed. The dog's tag clicked once. The friends held still 2 rooms away. "You expected me to beg," I said. "Not an accusation. A statement. You brought witnesses. You prepared what to say. You set the time." Her jaw tightened. "That's unfair." "No," I said. "It's accurate." I leaned my hip against the counter to show I wasn't leaving the room or ending the discussion. "I'm calm, not confused." She blinked. Her mouth opened and closed. She didn't have a response. She reached for a glass of water that wasn't there. One of the friends finally stood, visible at the corner of the doorway. She gave me a smile meant to look kind, and it came out patronizing. "Ryan, we just want what's best for both of you." "I'm sure," I said. "But this is between my wife and me." I kept my voice level and set the boundary clearly. The friend stepped back. The others huddled closer, phones quiet. Even they could tell the mood had changed. My wife tried a new approach. "Look, we can make this smooth if you don't make it difficult. We can split things fairly. We can keep it private. That's important to me." She looked back at the couch at private. "What do you actually want from me tonight?" I asked. "A reaction? A promise? A move-out date?" I paused on the last one and watched her face. Panic showed briefly, then faded. "I want you to accept this with grace," she said. "I want you to respect my decision." "I am," I said. "I'm not arguing." I dried my hands and set the towel down. "But if you want me to respect your decision, you should respect the truth it assumes." "What truth?" "That you're done." I held her eyes. "Not maybe. Not on a trial basis. Done." She shifted her weight. "I need space to think." "You just said you've decided." I kept my tone steady. "Which is it?" She didn't answer. The friends whispered among themselves. The dog got up and walked to his bowl, metal against tile. I poured a scoop without looking down. She tried again. We can separate for a bit. See if you can separate, I said. I'm not in limbo. I didn't add anything to soften it. Her mouth twitched. Wow, she said. You don't even care? I care enough to be honest, I said. And I care enough not to put on a show. I stepped past her into the living room. No rush. No threat. Just a change of position, so all of us were in view. The friends straightened. One pulled a throw over her knees. Another locked her phone and set its screen down, moving it away from the wine. The third met my eyes and then looked at the rug. I don't want to fight, my wife said, coming to stand at my side. Let's not make this ugly. It doesn't have to be, I said. We can be exact and quiet. I looked at the coffee table. But since you wanted support, let's be sure your support hears you clearly. Her friend stiffened. I wasn't going to move this to a private talk after she said it in front of them. If she wanted them there, they'd hear all of it. My wife put a hand on her hip. You're being cruel. No, I said. I'm being present. I took the remote and unpaused the TV for 3 seconds, volume up just enough to break the tension. Cabinets, tile, a before and after flash, and then pause again. It worked. Everyone breathed. Say it again, I told her evenly. So there's no confusion. She swallowed, glanced at each friend in turn, then back to me. It's over, she said, softer now. I'm ending this. Thank you, I said. The room waited for the rest. The plea, the scramble, the bargain, the oath. I let them wait. A full beat. 2. I felt my shoulders settle. I smiled. Not big. A small, steady smile. Her friend's expressions shifted. Curiosity, confusion. My wife's fingers tightened around her empty glass until they went white. She opened her mouth, closed it, and waited for me to speak. I didn't keep them long. I stepped a half pace closer so none of them would miss a word, set the remote on the table, and walked to the center of the room. I stepped half a pace closer so no one would miss a word. I set the remote on the table and looked at my wife. Perfect, I said. Now the other girl doesn't have to hide anymore. The room went still. Glasses stopped. The paused TV cast a cold light on 4 faces. Laughter stopped. My wife's mouth opened, then closed. She glanced left, right, back at me, gauging whether I meant it. One friend set her wine down too fast. The base clacked against the table. Another pushed a strand of hair behind her ear twice. The third looked at the door and kept looking. What other girl? My wife said. She aimed for neutral and sounded strained. The one I kept from you out of respect, I said. Coffee twice. A walk once. No overlap. No promises. I told her I was married and would act married unless this ended. You just made that simple. One friend tried to recover. So you've been cheating? No, I said. I told you exactly where the lines were. I kept them. Anger flashed on my wife's face, then confusion, then calculation. She'd expected a scene built around my reaction. Instead, I gave her facts and waited. She had no response. You're doing this to hurt me, she said. No, I said. You told me it's over. I'm answering plainly. Here, with the people you invited. Her friends shifted. The one by the doorway found her voice. This is cruel. What's cruel is staging an ending and counting on a man to beg, I said. I'm not doing that. I sat in the armchair across from the couch to show I was staying put. The dog came over, sat, and leaned against my shin. I don't believe you, my wife said. Who is she? She doesn't need to be part of this, I said. Her name doesn't change what you just said. You're done. I accept that, and I'm not staying available for later. Her friends traded looks. No raised voices. No scramble. No pleading. We can still be civil, my wife said. There's no need to make threats. I haven't made any, I said. Civil means we stop with half-truths that keep people where you prefer them. You said it's over. Good. That means I'm not on standby. It also means I don't need to hide normal contact with someone who treats me with respect. Her eyebrows rose. So you've been planning this. I've been preparing to act like an adult if needed, I said. That's different. I turned so her friends could hear. Repeat it once more for clarity, please. She hesitated, glanced at her friends, and found no help. It's over, she said, quieter. Thank you, I said. Then we'll proceed accordingly. The friend near the window stood. We should give you 2 space. You can stay, I said. You were here for the start. Stay long enough to hear the boundary. I kept my tone level. There won't be bargaining. No trial period. No late-night check-ins. If you want legal, we'll keep it legal. If you want clean, we'll keep it clean. We won't pretend this is unfinished. My wife bristled. You're enjoying this. No, I said. I'm relieved you finally said it plainly. She sat and set her glass down carefully. You expect me to believe you haven't crossed a line with this woman. Believe what you want, I said. I know what I've done and what I haven't. I also know we've been distant for weeks, and you denied it. I stopped denying it. I took a stapled packet from my inside jacket pocket and set it on the table. This lists accounts, utilities, and items that need decisions. It's neutral and practical. It separates emotion from logistics. I'll email the lawyer information. Her friends leaned forward when they saw paper. One sat back fast. My wife looked from the packet to me. You already had this. I told you, I said. Preparation, not plotting. I unlocked my phone without hiding the screen. No secrets. I scrolled to a contact with a first name only. I didn't tap it. You're texting her right now, a friend said. No, I said. I'm reminding myself my choices are real. I set the phone face down and folded my hands. If you need the house tonight, take it. I'll sleep at the apartment I've already toured. If you need the house this week, send dates. If you want to pack with someone here, do it. I won't supervise. Apartment, my wife said. You've already. Looked, I said. Because I pay attention. You've been practicing this conversation for weeks, and I won't act surprised when you finally say it. The friend by the door spoke, softer. We didn't tell her to hurt you. I know, I said. You told her to test me. Now you've learned something too. What's that? She asked. I don't participate in tests, I said. I decide. I stood. Not abrupt. Finished. Take 10 minutes. Choose whether to keep talking tonight or continue when everyone's sober and no one's posturing. If it's tonight, we stick to logistics. If later, I'll send times. Either way, what you said stands. My wife stared at the packet, then at her friends, then at the TV's frozen kitchen. She tried not to show what she knew I could see. I don't want them here for the rest, she said. Your call, I said. Her friends took their cue. Coats, phones, brief goodnights. No hugs. The last one looked at me, started to speak, stopped, and left. The door clicked. Silence returned. I picked up the packet and offered it. She didn't take it. I set it down again, closer to her side. This isn't revenge, I said. It's the end of pretending. She nodded once, small, reluctant, real. For the first time that night, it was just us. I wasn't angry. She wasn't triumphant. Only decisions were left. The door closed behind her friends. No audience. Just two people, a stack of paper, and a dog waiting for quiet. She stared at the packet. Then the scramble began. First came guilt. She moved closer, soft voice, damp eyes. I've given you my best years. I slid a pen across the table and said we could start with utilities or wait until Monday with counsel. She blinked, then tried again. I cooked. I hosted your work dinners. I supported you when you were traveling. I nodded. I said thank you for what was true and didn't argue the rest. Guilt needs resistance. I gave none. When that didn't land, she tried seduction. The robe tie, the posture, the voice. We don't have to end tonight like this. I stood, set the thermostat to away mode, and said I wasn't sleeping here. Her face changed quickly. She wasn't used to that failing. Blame followed. You humiliated me. You planned this. You wanted a reason to run to that girl. I let the words pass. I didn't explain twice. I repeated one sentence. You said it's over. Every time she tried a detour, I brought us back to fact. She hated how steady that looked. Panic came next. She paced. She asked where she would go if I took the house tonight. I told her she could keep it for the weekend. I opened my calendar and offered 2 blocks on Monday for a call with both attorneys to draft a temporary schedule. I said I'd email a list of passwords and subscriptions that needed changing. She called that cruel. It sounded like clarity. Her phone vibrated with the buzz of a group thread. She flipped it over. I caught her reflection in the black screen. Jaw tight, eyes wet, shoulders raised. For a second, she looked like someone who had gambled and lost. Then she rebuilt the mask. Are you really texting her the second I say it's over? She said. I pointed at the phone on my side of the table, face down. No, I'm handling our business. What if I change my mind in a week? She asked. You won't, I said. And even if you did, we don't backtrack. We make clean choices and live with them. She sat. Panic collapsed into quiet. I'd seen that quiet when life had cornered her before. I watched it appear and then fade under the version of her that wanted an easier road. I didn't pull her toward either. That wasn't my job anymore. I gathered what was mine: work laptop, charger, folder with maps and targets, 2 shirts from the laundry room. I left photos. I left the wedding album. I took my passport and left a note with its location next to hers. Not leverage, just order. She followed me upstairs. The dog's nails clicked behind us. At the bedroom door, she tried concern. Are you sure you should drive? I told her I'd had water, the apartment was 10 minutes away, and I'd send the address. She leaned in the doorframe, posture lowering bit by bit. You could stay here, she said. On the couch. No, I said. That's not clean. She watched me fold shirts into the overnight bag. Then came the question. How long have you known her? Long enough to know she isn't part of this, I said. Long enough to know I won't bring her into our mess. She nodded once and moved aside. No last-minute scene. It was the most respectful thing she'd done all night. Downstairs, I set the alarm, wrote my attorney's contact on a sticky note, and placed it on the packet. I texted my brother the same contact and told him not to call unless it was urgent. I watered the plant by the window. Routine matters. At the door, she hovered. What do I tell my mother? The truth, I said. That you ended a marriage. That I listened. That we're handling it as adults. She'll say I should come stay with them. Then go, I said. Go where you can think without an audience. She nodded. She reached for a hug, stopped, dropped her hand, and said my name. I said goodnight. Outside, the air was colder. A neighbor brought in groceries. A TV shouted about a game. The world hadn't changed, except the house I left. At the apartment, the manager had left the key in a lockbox. The place was half-staged. Neutral furniture, neutral art, functional kitchen. I set the bag down, opened the balcony door, and let Raleigh's noise in. Siren, voices, scooter. I texted my attorney. She ended it in front of witnesses. Monday works. Then I left the phone face down. The other woman's name sat 2 swipes away. I didn't touch it. I wasn't starting anything new. I was closing one thing fully. I poured water, sat on the counter, and let the quiet settle. Back at the house, the alarm pinged as the front door opened and closed twice. I pictured her moving through rooms, looking for signals that wouldn't come. I didn't feel triumph. I felt distance. The dog would sleep on her side of the bed because he follows warmth. Around midnight, I signed the short-term lease and set a reminder to cancel in 90 days if the sale went through. I made a list titled Immediate, Lock Credit, Forward Mail, Separate Streaming, Schedule Storage. Then another called After, buy a north-facing desk, hang nothing until it earns the wall. The second list made me smile for the first time all night. At 12:07 a.m., a final text came from her. We should talk. I let it sit. Not punishment. Policy. The sentence she'd said stood on its own. It didn't need a late-night sequel. I lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling until my breathing matched the refrigerator's hum. No replaying scenes. No speeches. Monday already had shape. Tonight didn't need one. Respect wasn't up for negotiation. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was holding the line alone. The line held. I woke before sunrise in the new place and didn't reach for my phone. I made coffee, opened the balcony door, and worked the list I wrote the night before. Immediate, mail forward, credit lock, streaming split, storage reservation. For tasks, for confirmations before 7. Direction, not revenge. At 8 I sent one clean email to both attorneys with bullet points and dates. She keeps the house for 60 days. I cover the mortgage while we unwind joint expenses. She removes her name from my corporate card. We alternate weeks with the dog. All communication in writing. No social posts, no late-night drop-ins. I copied her and hit send. 10 minutes later, the calendar invite landed. Monday, 10 a.m. I walked to the gym. 30 minutes on the rower, a light press workout, a slow stretch. The buzz in my head eased somewhere between sets. Back at the apartment, I showered and dialed in. Her lawyer opened with words about dignity. I asked for specifics that prove it. We set a 30-day temporary plan with a shared ledger and a single spreadsheet for loose items. I requested one change. No friendly check-ins. If it wasn't logistics, it waited. After a pause, they agreed. My attorney unmuted once to say, "Good." She spoke twice. First to say she didn't want to fight, then to ask if we could revisit boundaries later. I said we could revisit numbers, not boundaries. The call ended in under 40 minutes. It felt like moving furniture. Heavy, necessary, Done. I drove to the house with a suitcase and a 30-minute timer. I texted first, coming by for clothes and books. No surprise. No scene. She wore a sweatshirt, hair up, no makeup. I packed 2 closets into one box, a row of paperbacks, the drill, and my father's watch. The ring stayed where it was. At the door she said, "Do you hate me?" "No," I said. "I just don't belong here anymore." She asked to keep the dog this week because her mother was visiting. I said yes and marked the change on the shared calendar while she watched. Decisions, not drama. By Wednesday, the joint account was a ledger with an end date. By Friday, utilities had new owners. I sent screenshots for each transfer. She replied once with "thank you." That was progress. Her friends went quiet. One sent a long text about growth. I archived it. Her mother left a voicemail that sounded like a blessing wrapped in paperwork. I saved it and moved on. Saturday, I bought the north-facing desk and set it by the window. I assembled a cheap bookshelf and filled only the bottom 2 shelves. I wrote a new list: daily, coffee, gym, stretch, 1 call to a rep, no calls after 9. Boring builds shape. The other woman texted once, "Hope you're okay." I told her I was, that I needed a little time to finish what I started. She said, "Take it." We picked a coffee for the following week, daylight, public, with the timeline open on the table. No rush. No triangles. Sunday night my wife sent a message that didn't fit the rules. "I miss us." I looked at it for what it was, a request to pause consequences. I didn't answer. Monday morning, I emailed her attorney about the backdoor latch that stuck and attached a work order. Practical over emotional. The day moved. Tuesday, we signed temporary orders. I read every line and marked 3 small changes. She signed without argument. When we finished, she asked if we could talk outside counsel about what this means long-term. I said the lawyers were the right channel now, not punishment. She looked at me the way people look at a gate they used to walk through without noticing the latch, then left. I went back to work and sent 2 overdue emails I'd been dodging for weeks. Routine returned fast. By the second weekend, the apartment felt less like a holding pen and more like a place where I live. I bought a pan and a rug. Shoes lined up by the door. Passport in the top drawer. Spare keys in the bowl. None of it was profound. That was the point. People expect a grand speech at the end. What I got was a run of small actions that added up to a clear filter. Respect wasn't a demand. It was the rule. If something didn't pass through it, it didn't come in. We scheduled the settlement review. Her lawyer floated boilerplate about maintaining a friendship. I struck it. We are not enemies, but we are not each other's responsibility anymore. She can be whoever she wants to be without me as audience. I can build a quiet life that doesn't require performance. Accuracy, not cruelty. A week later, I met the other woman for coffee. I told her I was free on paper soon and free in my head now, and that I was keeping a slow pace. She asked for nothing that belonged to the past. We talked about work, a new taco spot near the stadium, and a hiking trail I hadn't tried. 40 minutes, 2 clear next steps, no drama. I left with the same steady quiet I felt the night I said, "Perfect." When the settlement draft hit our inboxes, my wife texted one last time outside counsel. "Are you sure about this?" I read it twice and set the phone down. I opened the document, checked the totals, signed my part, and sent it back with 1 line, reviewed and approved as marked. I didn't reply to her text. Silence wasn't a weapon. It was the exact size of the space she created when she told me to accept the end. The desk catches the north light in the morning. I sit there now, write my small lists, make my calls, and then shut the laptop at 9. The dog sleeps under the chair on my weeks and chases her mother's slippers on hers. Bills land where they should. The house will list in spring if she wants out. If she keeps it, I wish her well. That first night, her friends told her to watch me beg. They didn't understand the math. I don't beg for my place in my own life. I build it, then I keep it. Respect is not a negotiation. It's the price of admission. If someone won't pay it, they don't come in.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.